The month, the Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox. I'm beginning on page 23. Trouble and suffering are often extremely useful because many people will not bother to learn the truth until driven to do so by sorrow and failure. Sorrow then becomes relatively a good thing. Sooner or later, all of us will have to discover the truth about God and make our own contact with God at first hand. We will have to acquire the understanding of truth, which will set us free once and for all from our three-dimensional limitations and their concomitants: sin, sickness, and death. But most of us will not undertake the search for God wholeheartedly unless driven thereto by trouble of some kind. There is really no need for us to have trouble, because if we will only seek God first, the trouble need never come. We always have a choice of learning by spiritual unfoldment or of learning by painful experience, and it is our own fault if we make the latter choice. This general principle applies to every one of our difficulties: physical or financial troubles, family troubles, quarrels and estrangements, and all the rest need never come at all if we will seek first the kingdom of God and right understanding. But if we will not do so, then come they must. And for us, this mourning will become a blessing in disguise, for through it we shall be comforted. And by comfort, the Bible means the experience of the presence of God, which is the end of all mourning. I have an affirmation to share with you today. I'm going to read it through once, and then I'll ask you to declare it with me. In times of joy, times of sorrow, times of challenge, I turn to the true source for my good. I pray every day, whether I need it or not, knowing that as I cultivate my personal relationship with Source, need fades away into nothingness and an overflowing love, joy, success, and ease permeate my being. I walk in spiritual understanding and embrace the embodiment of the bountiful life. Please stand and declare with me. With conviction. In times of joy, times of sorrow, times of challenge, I turn to the true source for my good. I pray every day, whether I need it or not, knowing that as I cultivate my personal relationship with Source, need fades away into nothingness, and an overflowing love, joy, success, and ease permeate my being. I walk in spiritual understanding and embrace the embodiment of the bountiful life. And so it is. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Well, that's kind of an odd thing, isn't it? Wait a minute. The way to be happy is to be sad? How can that be? Because if you remember back to last week, we are talking over the next 7 more weeks now, including today, about the Beatitudes, which we restyled last week as the Blissitudes. They each start with a blessed, and then what blessed means is to be blissfully content or happy. Blessed are they that mourn. I can be blissfully content and happy if I mourn. Has anybody ever grieved a loss? Anything? No. Never. Me either. But I can kind of, maybe feel into what somebody else might be. No. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of joy in that feeling of grief, does it? And yet, this is the teaching of Jesus, and we call him a master teacher, don't we? We say, yeah, Jesus was the guy. He had the word. He knows what he's about. He's a master teacher. And he's telling me I can be blessed if I rest in my grief. He's telling me I can be blissfully happy. And now remember the second definition. To be blessed is to make holy or sanctify. Making our grief holy, making our sorrow holy, sanctifying it to a greater purpose. Perhaps the idea of this being a blessing, this experience in life being a blessing, might be linked to, am I willing to sanctify my grief, my feelings? Then, I just want to posit right now that we're actually, when he says, blessed are they that mourn, I want to open the context of that a little bit, because mourning is about loss, isn't it? We can mourn the loss of a job when we start a new job, even if we're excited about the new job. We can mourn the loss of an old home when you get a new home, even though we are excited about the new home. There can be a sense of loss and mourning and sadness and grief around a variety of experiences. And what's at the root of our grief is always that sense of loss. And what's at the root of that sense of loss is our fear that things might not be okay anymore. Blessed are those that fear, for they shall be comforted. Let's try it another way. Blessed are those who feel their feelings, for they shall be comforted. See, there's a blessing in there. You will be blissfully happy if you feel all of your feelings. If you sanctify all your feelings to a greater purpose, the promise is you will be comforted. And it might feel scary and it might feel difficult, but the promise, you will be comforted. It's a risk. Do you want the promise? I do. Blessed are those who feel their feelings. The promise is that you will be comforted. And notice I did not say, blessed are you when you let your feelings rule you. I did not say, blessed are you when you let your feelings drag you around. When you let your feelings make others unhappy because you're out of control with them. I didn't say that, did I? I didn't say, blessed are you when you let your feelings keep you stuck. Blessed are you when you feel your feelings, when you be in the presence of those feelings and allow them to teach you what they are here to teach you. And move on. You will be comforted. You see, the challenge is if we don't feel our feelings, if we don't let it out, we act it out. Does that make sense? We act things out in a lot of different ways. Emmett Fox was talking in the reading about, it shows up in our bodies when we suppress. It often creates physical symptoms, shows up in our bodies, shows up in our behavior, shows up in our relationships. Sometimes our biggest challenges in our relationships have nothing to do with the other person. What? It has to do with how we feel. And are we feeling our feelings in healthy and productive ways? Or are we repressing and keeping them stuck, not expressing? And we find ourselves acting out what we are not working out. Our body, our relationships, our finances, even just a generalized sense of anxiety. We got to feel all of those feelings and let them teach us what they have come to teach us. You see, the thing about pain is it can make us bitter or it can make us better. And sometimes it feels like the easy path is just to get mad about it and let it make us bitter. I don't want to do all that work. I don't want to feel my feelings. I don't want to have to be in the process. I'd rather just be bitter. Well, that's okay. You can choose to do that. And you will have a different experience of life and God. And I promise you, it's not actually easier. It seems easier in the moment that we make that choice. But over the long haul of your life, bitterness will never lead to your bliss. Allow your pain to make you better. And so the answer is yes. The way to be happy is to be sad. Amazing, isn't it? The way to be happy is to feel your feelings and move through life with confidence and grace and as much courage as we can muster. Sounds good. Ready? Let's go. Okay, but there's a little more to it than that, because how are we going to do this, right? Because it's one thing to go sit on a Sunday morning and hear some really great music and an inspiring message, and then we got to go out and we got to go to work tomorrow and we got to face our grief and we got to be with it, right? So how do we be in the process of feeling our feelings in a way that is productive and healthy and following the teachings of the master teacher so that we can be comforted? And I have kind of 3 ideas about that I want to share with you this morning. And the first idea is when we're feeling grief, when we're mourning, when we're feeling loss, when we're feeling fear, when we're feeling anger, is to reach out and reach up. I don't know about you, sometimes when I'm feeling those feelings, my tendency is to go shut myself in the bedroom with a book and not reach in, not reach out, not reach up, not reach anything. To repress. But what if, instead of that, I reached out? And not just out. Out isn't enough. Because you can reach out to somebody who's going to agree with you about how painful it is, right? And they're just going to support you and being stuck in those feelings. That's reaching out too. But I'm telling you to reach up. To reach up. To a higher consciousness, a bigger idea of what's possible for this experience to take you to a new level of being so that we can learn from what this pain has to teach us. See, any real loss is about change, right? As we said earlier. And so what we want to do is reach out to those who can walk with us hand in hand through that change. Now, we can do that in a number of ways. We could reach out to, oh my gosh, there's about 100 people in this room right here and right now who I bet you could reach out to. Pretty much anybody in this place, I bet if you said, I'm mourning and I need some comfort, I bet almost anybody in this room would be there for you. And if they're not, go to somebody else. Because odds are they're going to be there for you. Yes? So we reach out to our spiritual community. It's one of the reasons it's important to create spiritual community so that when the hard times of life come to us, we have the support we need to navigate it successfully. That's one of the big purposes of spiritual community. You can reach out to a prayer partner. You can be in a small group and allow those people to support you. You can reach out to a professional counselor or therapist. There are lots and lots of people that you can reach out to who are going to lift you up, not keep you stuck. And if it costs you a little bit of money, figure it out because it's worth it. It's the rest of your life. The universe will provide for your healing. Remember the promise? Blessed are those who feel their feelings, for they shall be comforted. The universe will provide you with the resources that you need. God is there for you as you seek first that kingdom. God is there to support your spiritual journey, and the resources and the people and the inspiration will be provided to you. That's the promise. You will be comforted, whether you want it or not. You know, my grandmother used to say, if you share a joy, it's doubled. If you share a sorrow, it's halved. Isn't that wise? If you share a joy, it's doubled. If you share a sorrow, it's halved. Share your joys. Share your sorrows. Reach out and reach up. And ultimately, you know what happens? You allow yourself to get supported in reaching inward. Because that really is where the true source lies, right? That is where your true comfort comes from. These are just kind of stand-ins to support you until you can get to the reaching in place. Reach out, reach up, reach in. You will be comforted. I promise. Now, when you've done that, you see you're creating a structure in which you can safely mourn, in which you can safely feel your feelings. The next step, don't fix, don't rush. If you're like me, you like to fix things and make them okay. It's really important to be available to the process. Growth takes time, right? If I plant a seed in the ground and dig it up 5 minutes later, it won't have grown yet. It takes time for that seed to germinate and put down roots and mature. I shared my grief, it's done, it's over, I'm good. Maybe, I'm not saying that's not possible, it could be. It could happen that way for you. But make sure you have emptied the well of potential learning from this experience. Otherwise, you just get to do it again later. Just do it this time. Just do it now. And you will be set free to live that life of bliss, to be happy and contented. Because you were willing to be in the process, not try and fix it. One of the things that we try to do in this phase when we're trying to rush through our grief is blame. How could God let this happen? I should have done something different. You should have done something different. It wouldn't be like this. Blaming is part of trying to fix and rush and make it okay. But remember, our pain can make us bitter or better. Blame is on the bitter side, right? Release that blame. It is what it is. I was listening to Reverend Michael Beckwith the other day, and he said, nobody argues with 2 and 2 is 4. It just is. It just is. It's an isness. And with the events and happenings and unfoldings of our lives are no different. It simply is. It's an isness. And if we can accept that 2 and 2 is 4, I experienced this grief, I experienced this loss, and just be with it, ask it what it has come to teach us, be present to it, we will be comforted. Now I'm talking about the big griefs and the little griefs here, yeah? I'm remembering, I had a neighbor, her name was Peggy. This was 12 years ago, she passed away. She was my neighbor for almost 10 years, and she was quite elderly. She was in her 80s and 90s when I knew her. And she lived by herself, and all of her family was gone. She had had 4 sisters, none of whom married, and they all lived together all their lives. And then when she was the last sister, she moved into this apartment on Capitol Hill. Well, she had an apartment, her entire apartment was stuffed with her stuff from her entire life. And she loved my kitty cat, and I would take my kitty cat, and I would go next door, and I would sit with Peggy, and my kitty would sit on her lap, and she'd pet the kitty, and I would go through stuff. She had her pay stubs from when she worked at Nordstrom's in the 1940s. It was amazing. She had all of this stuff. And her apartment was just stacked with things everywhere and these antiques and all of this stuff. And one day I was with her and she's petting the cat and I'm going through papers and we're slowly throwing things away for the recycling. And I came across a vase that was it was a little vase, it was only like that high. And it was this kind of crackled glass thing. And I said, "Oh, Peggy, what a beautiful vase." And she said, "Well, would you like to have that?" And I said, I would like to have that. It would be a lovely reminder of you. And so I took the vase, and a couple of years later, Peggy did pass away, and I had the vase on my windowsill, and one day I watched my cat jump up onto the windowsill and knock the vase off, and it shattered into a million pieces. And it was such an interesting experience of grief, because when I saw the cat jump on the windowsill, the same cat that Peggy had loved and petted, I knew what was going to happen. And as that vase fell, I had such an intense wave of grief. That's the only thing I have of Peggy's. And by the time it hit the floor, when it shattered, I was over it. It was like a 1.5 seconds grief process. And as it shattered, I just knew that it was representative of Peggy's gone now. She's no longer with us. She was a great neighbor. She was an amazing human being. She had so many stories. The vase. No more vase. And I was able to sweep that thing up and put it away and feel really at peace with it. And for me, that was a lesson about release. And I could have cried for a long time, and I could have tried to fix it and put the vase back together. I could have done a lot of things, but I simply allowed it to be. That's kind of a little grief, it's a vase. Some number of years ago now, the man that I call my godfather passed away, and it was a shock. He was a relatively young man, and my sister called one day, and I saw her on caller ID, and I picked it up. Hi, TK, how you doing? Happy. And she said, Mar, and I could tell by her voice. I said, what's wrong? And she said, Ken has died. I've never felt such intense grief. And it took me such a long time to work through it. To release him, to learn from it, to be present to the experience. It's a bigger grief. It's a bigger loss. It took me probably a couple years. And even to this day, in this moment, my heart is kind of all squeezy. You know what I mean? With that sense of loss. But I didn't try and fix it. I didn't try and make it okay. I didn't try and blame anybody. I just sat with it. And it was a journey of a couple of years. The vase was a journey of 1.5 seconds, and the other one was a journey of a couple of years, and it just takes us where it takes us. And occasionally to this day, I have such a deep feeling of loss and grief and sadness that Ken is gone in the physical realm. But simply being present to the process, allowing grief to grow us, having faith. And let me just cast back to last week. It depends on what you depend on. Do I depend on the physical presence of the vase? Do I depend on the physical presence of Ken? Or do I depend on the mind and the heart and the body of God? The infinite love, the infinite presence. That which can never die. That which can never leave me. Blessed is my grief, for it grows me. So what's the first one? We reach out, we reach up, and ultimately we reach in. And the second one is don't fix, don't rush, no matter how long it takes, the big griefs and the little griefs, the big sorrows and the little sorrows. Be present to it until you've learned what needs to be learned. Third thing. As you have moved through this process, and when you are ready, and only when you're ready, let sorrow become service. Let your sorrow become your call to serve. You see, there are some gifts of sorrow, aren't there? Greater compassion. If we let our sorrow make us better, not bitter, it grows our compassion. It grows our courage. I am a profoundly more courageous woman because of the path I walked when Ken died. There are gifts that sorrow gives us when we feel our feelings and be in the process. And when those gifts begin to mature, they want to express. And so we let our sorrows make us better. We let our sorrows allow us to be in service in the world in a different way. Blessed, happy are they that mourn. They will be comforted. And then we become comforters. Because I'll tell you something, there's somebody in this room who's looking for comfort. You either are in need of comfort or you know someone who is in need of comfort. Allow your sorrow and the gifts that come along with it to open your heart to greater compassion, to greater courage. Become of service to the world in new ways. Express those gifts in ways they never could have come forth before because you did not know them as yours yet. But this experience that made you better brings them to life so that you may be of service to others who are walking. None of us walk the same path, but many of us walk a similar path, yes? And so we allow our grief to become, our sorrows, even our anger, even our fears to become our teachers. Blessed are those who feel their feelings. They will be comforted. They will be blissfully happy. They will be open to a greater idea of the infinite nature of spirit and change the world, make the world a better place for everyone. This is the human condition, you guys, right? We are in this limited human form. There will be sorrow. We can choose how we're going to be with it and how we will process it. And personally, my teacher, Jesus, told me to feel my feelings in ways that are healthy and productive. And my teacher told me that if I am willing to be available to that process, I will be comforted. I believe it. Oh, wait, what's that other thing we teach? It is done unto us as we believe. Anne Lamott, a brilliant woman, she said this. She said, I do not understand the mystery of grace, only that it meets us where we are, and it does not leave us where it found us. Grace meets us where we are, and it does not leave us where it found us. This human condition and our griefs and our sorrows and our fears and our angers are here to grow us, to bring us closer to God. The promise is comfort and grace. God will not leave you. It cannot, for it is right where we are. And so let's turn within and seal this message. Taking the sacred breath and recognizing and knowing the spiritual truth, and that there is only one life. And that life is God's life. And that life is infinite, and it is oh so intimate. It is right where we are. We cannot be separate from it. And so as you connect with any feelings you might have of sorrow, of loss, even anger or fear, as you connect with the feelings of mourning, of sadness, simply feel the feeling. Don't allow it to feel you. You feel it. Be present to it. Know that you are safe and you are surrounded by infinite love, by a presence that is greater than you are, that will never leave you alone, and you simply feel the feelings. Oh, I am so sad. This human condition seems so fraught with sorrow. And as you feel these feelings of sorrow and loss, simply know who it is you are to reach out to. Who it is that will walk this path with you, even if just for a few minutes, so that you can be more readily available to the experience of God as love. Who will walk with you? And see yourself reaching up to a bigger idea. And see yourself reaching in to that infinite resource that is at the center of your being. And releasing any need to fix it or make it okay or rush through, you simply know that you are available now to the lesson, to the learning, to the growing, to the courage, to the compassion that is being called forth in you out of this experience. And as you expand your awareness of these gifts, see yourself, when you are ready, putting these to work in service to others. Blessed are you when you feel your feelings, when you mourn, you are comforted. The infant mind and heart of God, the Holy Spirit, is right where you are, comforting, lifting, and inspiring, and carrying you through this time forward into that life of joy and bliss that is yours right here and right now, as you say yes to this presence, to this love, to this power, to this grace, knowing you have been transformed by the renewing of your mind, by the renewing of your heart. And so it's with a grateful heart that I close this message, giving thanks for all the feelings, for all the insight, for all the growth, for all the openings, giving thanks that God, the infinite one, the living one, is all there is, and we are comforted by it. And so, remembering who we are, we sing together. Amen.